All right, guys, let's rock and roll. We can see that we're currently in a folder on our desktop called Sierra. We're going to create a new folder. We're going to call it to-do list. We can move into our to-do list, and then we can do what? We can create all our necessary files that we need for a project. Additionally, what else do we need to do? We create our files. Let's go ahead and create our folders. What are the folders that we always use? CSS, image, and JS. Okay? We're using this with a combination of our Linux skills. So now if we type in ls, we can see a folder called CSS, image, JS, and these files. I'm going to open up my code editor, and then we're going to see that we have all of these. I'm going to move script.js into JS. I'm going to move style.css into CSS. Inside of index.html, I'm going to create use the HTML5 command, and I'm going to rename it to-do list. Okay, let's go ahead and start our server. And what's the expectation? A white screen, because we haven't added anything yet. So let's make that screen red to smoke test. So now we're going to do link, and then we're going to say it's inside of CSS, and then inside of our style.css, we're going to add body, background color, red. Okay, so we produced the behavior of a red background. Okay, let's delete that because it looks like shit. Now let's go ahead and get our script. Inside of JS, inside of script.js, we're going to import it. But if we open up our console inside of our Chrome browser, do we know that whether or not it has been sourced? Not exactly. So let's go ahead and throw a console.log inside this to prove that we've imported this file. So we jump back, and do we see go? Yes. Guys, please stop me if you have any questions. I'm trying to do this quick because I want you guys to spend as much time practicing as possible. Okay? Practicing is where you guys are going to learn a lot. But when talking, if you guys have questions, you guys should ask questions. Okay? I feel like every one of these steps so far, you guys should understand exactly what it is I'm doing. Yes. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and do some magic. Inside of H1, or inside of our body, we're going to do an H1. We're going to call this one to-do list. Let's go ahead and test our behavior, and we now see a H1 that says to-do list. Nice. Okay. So below that, we're going to have an input, and we're going to give it an ID of, I don't know, to-do input, to-do body input. Okay. That's the ID. Next, we're going to produce a button, and this button is going to have an on-click attribute. And this on-click attribute is going to fire a function. I'm going to call it add to do, because add to do is what we're doing. We're adding a to do. It doesn't actually matter to the user where we're adding it in state, okay, in our application. Lastly, we're going to have a UL, and we're going to give it a ID of to-do list. Okay, so we refresh, and we see our button doesn't have any text right here. That's because we didn't add any text inside this button. We're going to add here. And now we can see we have our ad. If we enter some text and then we click add, you guys get the complaint, add to do is not defined. The reason why that is because on line 13 for this button, on the on-click attribute, we said, hey, whenever the user clicks on this button, fire a function called add to do. Yet we have not defined that function yet. So we can define it now. And because we talked about earlier about ES6, instead of using this old school style, I'm going to show you the way I prefer that you guys write this. Okay, this is the future of JavaScript. Okay, if you read a tutorial that was written within the last month, you're going to see JavaScript written this way. I guarantee it. So we're going to do const add to do is equal to this thing right here. What's this thing on the right? What's this thing that we're assigning to add to do? What is that? We got highlighted. It's a function, yes. Okay, so right now we just do a console.log test. Okay, we click the button, we can see that we successfully got test to fire. There's the simplest version of the function that we can fire right here on the right, guys, line 2. But when we add to do, we want to do more than just console.log. We want to add this to do to something. What is this something that we're going to be manipulating? It's going to be a list of to-dos. So what we're going to do, when we fire this function, we're going to look at something and then look at its value. So we're going to do document.getElement by ID. And what are we looking at on here on the left, guys? Our to-do body input. We're going to look at its value. And right now, we have not assigned this expression to anything yet, okay? Line 3, we have not assigned what returns from here yet. But I want you guys to know it's okay to test as we go. So I'm going to type in, hello Sierra, today was Bitno's speed day. And I'm just going to paste this command in here. And what is the expectation if this works correctly? We should get this text out of here, right? So we hit enter. And did we get this text? Yes, we did. So now we can assign that to a new variable for consumption. I'm going to stick it inside of a variable called body. Okay, so what are we going to do with this body? I know that our to-dos, we want to do many, many different things with them, right? So I'm telling you, the vast majority of times, like 99.999% of times, you want to stick your data inside of an object. So we're going to produce a new object by doing const new to-do. And then we're going to define it as an object. This is an object on line 4, I promise you. Watch this. We copy this, do type of object. So we've proven that empty curly braces is an object. But an empty object is virtually useless to you. Okay? You need to produce an object that has many keys. And inside of these keys, we need to have meaningful data. So we're going to stick body here. Inside of a key called body, we're going to stick whatever it is inside this variable body. In conjunction, we're also going to stick in something called created at. But I'm not going to use this in this demonstration. I just want you to know that like your objects get more sophisticated. We're going to put new date here. So we can now know that when new.date runs, that we're going to produce a created at date, which is today, which is the time in which the user clicks it. Okay. So right now it's what 2:23, right? Is the time correct? It's kind of cut off for here, but I promise you it's 2:23. If I wait 5 minutes, what is this going to say? 2:28, right? Something like that. So anyway, this is going to produce a dynamic date. The last thing we need to introduce here is a status of is done. I actually don't like this one. I don't like this one because it can only ever be true or false. What else can a to do be? What other things can describe a to do other than true or false? Done.
In process.
Huh?
You might be like it's like actually currently doing.
That's one thing. What else? What about deleted? Is deleted one? Can you delete one? Is there anywhere on a computer where you guys can delete something and then you hold it on later on? You hold it later? Yes. There's many different places you can do this, okay? For example, your recycling bin. If you delete it, like your app still remembers it. You don't actually delete it. So I would have preferred that you guys do status here. Then we can say something like done or undone or deleted. And then if you guys do deleted right here, this allows you guys to have like a recycling bin in your app, okay? It just depends on what type of app you guys are building. But right now, because I don't want to get this too complicated, we're just gonna do is done false, okay? So now the next thing becomes, what do we do with this to do? We need to inject this to do into what? Our to-do list, exactly. So let's go ahead and console.log the to-do list here. When this add to do function fires, let's console log what to-do list is on line 3 at the very beginning, and then at the very end we'll console log the to-do list again to see how we've manipulated this variable. So the next thing we need to do is just do to-dos list dot push new to do. Okay, so we save. We type in, what's the first to do? Demonstrate app. I click add. You guys can see here in our console that on line 3, that our to-do list is an empty array. It's an empty array. But on line 11, it's an array that has exactly one object in it. And I promise you this is the object that we just created. That being said, we can add another one. Demonstrate manipulating manipulating. Fuck, I spelled that wrong. To-do list. Once again, let's go and clear our console. What do you guys expect the first to-do list to look like?
Empty.
Who else? Who agrees with Ed? Should it be empty, guys? It shouldn't be empty, right? Because we just stuck one in there. And then now the first one should have one, the second one should have two. And that is in fact what we see. Demonstrate app was the first to-do we made. Demonstrate manipulating the to-do list is the second. Wait a minute. Okay, the reason why this is occurring right here, where you guys see that it's different, is because sometimes fucking JavaScript sucks. Okay, the object has been updated, so the console log is looking at the latest version. It's looking at the latest version of the object, despite the fact that we console logged it before. Do you guys understand what I just said? Who? Someone repeat what I just said. Anyone?
The console log updated what you really wanted it to. I mean,
Okay, so right now, despite the fact that in the first to-do list we see one object right here, this is before we manipulated the to-do list on line 3. It has one element in it. We added a to-do, and now we see that the to-do list has two objects. But that being said, when we expand the to-dos list, we see two objects in here. The reason why this is occurring is because JavaScript is not perfect. It's not a perfect programming language. There is no such thing as a perfect programming language, right? How it's set up is that when we expand this object, right? What object are we talking about? Yes, when we expand the to-do list, we're looking at the newest version. We're not looking at the previous version that we had originally had. So this is an area right now that may not seem like a big deal, but when we get into React World, I promise you guys are gonna run into this problem. And I'm gonna show you how to fix it when it comes time. Okay, so guys, we've successfully been able to add items to our to-do list. But when we look at our UI, we cannot show them. We have not shown them. Is that useful to our user? No, we need to show our user. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into our to-dos list right here. And I'm going to advise you guys, when you create something like this, an app, when you first work, you guys should go ahead and start entering in some default objects to show, okay, to just show. So we're gonna do body is equal to show dummy data to Sierra. We're gonna do is done is equal to true. We're gonna do created app is equal to new date. Okay, that seems all right. Obviously, this object's gonna get more complicated, but we're just gonna leave it like that right now. I'm gonna copy them down. I'm gonna say, okay, we showed you guys this, and complete entire app. This is false, right? This is false. False. Okay, what's our second to do gonna be? Let's say, eat cake. Okay, that's true. We finished eating cake, right? Let me check my plate. Oh yeah, okay, I'm done. I ate all my cake. Okay, true. Okay, so we save it, and if we refresh and we look at our to-do list, oop, my bad. Well, that's weird. To-dos list. Refresh, we look at our to-dos list. We see that we have these 3 objects in here, and they have a little bit of different data type. So now let's go ahead and define the function that's going to draw all these things. Do const render to-dos equals a function right here. And inside of here, we're gonna look at our to-dos list, we're gonna map over them, and then we're gonna look at each to-do individually. Each to-do individually. Afterwards, we're gonna return a string which contains an li, and inside of here, we're gonna have our to-do what? To do what? What is to do right here, guys? Can I just do to do in here? Let's try it. Let's just try it and see what happens. So, when we map over all our to-dos, all our to-dos in our to-do list, it's going to return something. It's going to return what we tell it to return on line 36. We now need to bookmark its return value. So we can say const to-dos HTML is equal to this. Okay. Then the very next step is to take this object that this array that we've created and stick it in our UI. So we're gonna do document.getElement by ID. Which ID do we want to stick it in? Our to-do list. We're gonna stick it in our inner HTML. Let's see what happens. So right now, because we do not have a way of executing this function, we're gonna go ahead and just fire it ourselves. But either way, that's okay, because as soon as the app loads, we don't want our user to be staring at a blank screen. So we're just gonna fire the function one time. So we save it, we refresh, and now we see that we have objects on the screen, the word object. And the reason why this is because the Chrome browser does not understand how to render an object on the screen, but it can render a string on the screen. See, just think about this real quick. Oh, my bad. Okay, this might be a little... Can you guys see this still? Yeah? Okay, so why is it saying object here on the left, guys? Because we're trying to stick an object in there. You cannot do that. Watch this. Let's just say document.getElement elements by ID. We'll say to-do list .inner HTML is equal to an object. It complains, you can't do that. But if we stick in a string, hello Sierra, I can put in a string. Watch what happens to this array right here, or this object right here. You can stick a string into your screen, but you cannot stick an object. So the problem here, the fundamental problem that we are facing right now, is that to do on line 33, we're trying to stick an object in there. But we should not be sticking in an object. We can stick in the to-do's body. And you guys can see that when we save, that we do get the behavior we anticipate. Additionally, we have this problem with the array right here, or with the comma right here. The reason why this is occurring is because when we try to stick in an array, JavaScript does not know how to render it correctly. So let's just stick in 1, 2, 3. And you can see that it sticks in everything with a comma. But if we do 1, 2, 3 and we join it with an empty string, it's going to produce one string, right? And the commas disappear. We could also stick in other things if we wanted. Let's just say we wanted to separate them all with an at. And then you can see that every single one of our elements is separated with this at. But for this example, we don't want to stick anything in between them. We just want to join them all. So we refresh, and now we see that we got rid of the commas. Okay, so let's do a couple more. Let's figure out how to remove a to-do. So at the very end, let's go ahead and introduce a anchor. And inside of here, we'll have our href. I think href works. It might be on click now that I think about it. Not?
Href is not work.
Okay, so we do on click. And then inside of here, we're going to stick in on remove. And inside of here, we need to inject some data. And this data is going to allow us, it's going to tell us which to do it is that we want to remove, right? So in order to do this, why am I getting a complaint here? Oh, it's because I need to put something in there. Okay, so in order to determine what to do that we're removing, we need to look at the index. In the future, you guys will have a simpler way to do this. Okay, I'll show you guys a simpler way, but this is the way you need to know how to do this right now. So remember, when we're mapping over a list of elements, every single time the function is fired, we get access to the index. So we're gonna pass that index into our string, into a function called onRemove. Okay, I save it. Why does this not work? Because I did not stick anything inside of it. Okay, so we look at it, we click it. What's it complaining about? OnRemove is not defined. We do not have a function called defined by that yet. So we're not going to define it. We say const onRemove is a function. Okay, and then we're gonna do what? We're gonna say to-dos list dot splice, and then we're gonna look at the index and remove one element. the index is going to be passed in from the function call. For those of you who don't understand what splice does, let's think about this, okay? Let's open up a Quokka. Let's pretend I had a variable, an array called people with Loy, Bitna, height, for example. If we call splice here, splice will take two arguments. The first argument is the index of the element we want to remove. The second argument is how many we want to remove. Okay, so let's just say that it's Bitna's birthday and she's leaving early because she's gonna go party tonight. So we need to remove her from our array, right? So we're gonna say, okay, let's take our people, let's splice them. We'll start with our one index and we'll remove one. Afterwards, if we look at people, what do we see? Bitna is gone. Can someone help me, guys? What if instead of removing Bitna, I wanted to remove Loy? How could I change the values on line 4? 0, 1. Does that work? Did I remove Loy? What if I wanted to remove Bitna and High? What can I do? Exactly. So this is what splice does. The first argument is the index in which we want to start. The second argument is how many of the items we want to remove. Okay, so we're done with that. Okay, so when we move, we're just gonna splice over. We're gonna splice inside of here from the index, and we're gonna move one item. Lastly, we're just gonna render our to-dos again. So we save, refresh. I got a problem. Why is this thing blue? I'm expecting this to be blue.
I think you have to make hurry up HREF and then
Oh yeah.
the empty.
Thank you.
Inside up there. Put the shop inside.
Okay, so you guys can see now that when we click this bad boy, we can in fact remove to-dos. Okay, so we're gonna refresh. And like I said, guys, I want you guys to stick in some dummy data, okay? That makes you work faster. Okay, so what's the next thing we need to know how to do? We need to know how to
It's done.
Okay, we need to do look at the is done. What are we gonna do with that again? We're gonna be able to toggle it, okay? We're gonna be able to toggle whether or not the to-do is done, okay? So so now we're gonna go ahead and clean up our code a bit. Put this on multiple lines. Okay, so now when we click on our list element, we want to toggle it. So we're gonna add an on click, and inside of here we're gonna say on toggle, and we're gonna inject the index once again. Okay, on toggle. So now, oh shit, yeah. Okay, so on toggle here. Okay. Now we're gonna define a function called on toggle. Its value is gonna be a function, right? And when this function is called, it's gonna be passed an IDX. So now the question is, how can we update that one? So we're gonna say to-dos list IDX dot is done is equal to the same thing except the opposite. Okay, the opposite of it. Lastly, we're going to render their to-dos again. So guys, if I click this, will it work? Who thinks it's working? Who thinks it's working right now? It's kind of working. Okay, I can tell you that it is in fact updating, but the UI does not work correctly. The UI does not tell the user that this thing has changed. But I'm going to prove to you that this thing has in fact changed. Before. Okay, so I'm going to refresh. I'm going to toggle show dummy data to Sierra. And which one should be updated? The first, second, or third one? First, right? So is the first one? It's false. So if this worked correctly, we should expect that this thing should be true. Whoa. Did that work? Okay, it worked. Hold on. Let's click it one more time. Before, it's false. I think this once again goes to the problem about it displaying. Okay, so now let's just prove this, okay? Let's just prove this thing right now. So inside of our to-dos right here, when we're rendering our to-dos, we're going to dynamically decide to add a class. We're going to say, hey, class right here. And inside of here, we're going to say, okay, if the to-do dot is done, then we'll put done. Otherwise, we'll put undone. Okay? So now we can update our styles right here. We can define a new class. We'll call it done. If it is done, we'll say text decoration. Strike through. Fuck. Text. Huh? Text decoration. I always forget it. Line through. Okay, so if it is done, we'll have a line through. And do we see that these have a line through now? So now let's uncheck some. And we can see that now we produce a different behavior for each to do based on its status. So remember I told you guys a while back, right, that objects are useful because of what? Because we can sort of ask them questions, right? We can ask them questions. So you guys can see here on on line 35, inside the string that we're producing, we're saying, hey, we're asking this to do a question. We're saying, hey, to do, are you done? If you're done, I'm going to give you a class of done. I'm going to stick done inside this class. Otherwise, I'm going to stick in a class of undone. Okay, does that make sense, everyone? Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to show you how to do one more thing, okay? Now we're going to produce the behavior where you can sort for filtered or unfiltered. So we need to introduce a new button. We're going to say, okay, we're going to say on filter for done. And we'll put a done right here. Okay, so how can we get this bad boy to work, okay? So if we click our done right now, it's going to complain. On filter for done does not work because it's not defined. So we'll move back over here. We'll do const on filter for done is equal to a function. And what are we going to do in here, guys? We're going to say, hey, render our to-dos, and we're going to pass it a new argument. Okay? We're going to say, hey, give me all the to-dos that are done. Okay, and now in the original call, because we were refactoring this now, we need to refactor all our other calls to render to do. So the first time we want render to do's, we're gonna pass it all. No, we don't even need to pass it all, okay? Which,
So you take it all by default, right?
yeah, we already take all by default, so that's why I'm gonna ignore that right now. I'm trying to keep it simple here, guys. Obviously, this gets more complicated. So right now, I'm gonna pass in a done for render to do's, and now we're gonna refactor our render to do's. Okay, so this is the simplest way we can do it. We can say status. This is the status right here. We'll call it status that we're taking in, and then we're gonna say fuck it. We're just gonna make this simple. Okay, we say to-dos is equal to to-dos dot list dot filter. One thing. Okay, let to-dos, okay? Now we're gonna say if status, oh my bad, if status is equal to done, then we're gonna say to-dos is equal to to-dos dot filter to-do where the to-do is done, okay? So, yes. So now we refactor line 35 to be to-dos. And in this case, we need to have an else where to-dos is equal to to-dos list. Okay, let's see if this works. We refresh. We click done. Oops. Filter of undefined. Oh, my bad. My bad. Refresh. Click done. Does that work? So we do, hey, add. Oops. We've introduced a new problem though. Have we? This work? If to-dos is list. If, well, this is not working, huh? Let's think about this. Why is this working? The done works, right? But why is the add broken now? We add it to do. Say again?
You not pass the status of attribute render attribute.
You don't have the render to do
At
So if we don't, when we call render right here, if we call, oh, right here we didn't do it, right? Render, okay, thank you. We didn't call render to do's here. Thank you. All right, so it's this, add, we add, this toggle, we can toggle them. And that's, how many are done? Every one of them. I click done, I should see all of them stay the same. Okay, now let's toggle 3 of them in the middle. If we click done, we should see only 2 left, right? We should see AS blah 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 and show dummy data. Let's test it. Is that the behavior we see? Okay, so I've been talking for 30 minutes. I'm sorry, it's twice as long as I thought it would be. You guys keep working on this.